The topic of this video is transitioning into and through enlightenment. And it's a topic that you're just not going to find very much information on. And the reason, of course, is there's only a handful of enlightened people in the world at this particular time. There may be numerous that even delusionally may think that they are enlightened. And then the vast majority pretend to be because it promotes their business, which is they're a guru, and their business is preaching whatever it is they deem is spiritual truth, and it's certainly a business. There's many people that coordinate the entire organization and stuff like that. Now, I know it sounds like I'm disrespecting those individuals, but in fact I am not, because to the true spiritual seeker, they are going to benefit regardless of where they are seeking after spiritual truth. Let me give you an example. There is a creator God that created everything. And some people argue that, well, there's a devil. And so why would this God create a devil and make everything so difficult that you have to go through? And it just doesn't make sense to most people. But the reality is God did not make the devil. Rather than what took place was God created an environment, which is this reality, that allowed all essences to self-create themselves with the products that are available to everyone. And eventually, one of those individuals created himself into the name Lucifer. And the process goes on and on and on. And one of them created themselves into Christ, known as Jesus, throughout the world. Whether or not that was his name, it's immaterial for the topic. So I'm not disrespecting anyone, because if you can learn in a reality where there is both Lucifer and Christ, and both may be vying for your attention, but you, as the essence of the physical body that you currently inhabit, so to say, it is your prerogative to use those teachings from both sources to self-create yourself, depending on what direction it is you want to go. And so I am not disrespecting the unenlightened charlatans that are essentially running a business for their self-greed. They do that because that's their prerogative to do it. And those seekers that are attracted to those individuals are benefiting, because at some point they might see it as distasteful to them. And although it may create a hell of a havoc in their life while they are going through that, that's a benefit to them personally. Or maybe they choose to be like that individual. That too is a benefit to them, because they are creating themselves. So in that essence, I'm not disrespecting the tens of thousands of unenlightened people. Now, the ones that believe they're enlightened and yet they are not, those are the better ones because they actually do their best. They have the spirit of love in their heart and soul, and they really are trying to teach. And so those are the good ones. But you will never find a guru that's enlightened that has followers essentially around them for the most part. Now, were there followers around Jesus? Absolutely. But I mean, come on, several, maybe a dozen, they say at the time that he died. So, I mean, people were interested, but it's very interesting to follow a guru that appears to be a magician that can walk on water, etc., etc. But for the actual message of what he taught, yeah, there was maybe a handful of people. So, yeah, you're not going to find very many people around a truly enlightened guru. But, so I'm talking to an extremely select few people. Yeah, I could be talking to millions, but just an extreme select few might gain something from what I am saying. So let's put it that way. Because most people are attracted to the when there's thousands of followers or hundreds of followers, a person has some sort of confidence in themselves that, oh, I can't go wrong by following that individual. Well, of course, we can see what the system, the process was when those who followed somebody like Hitler. I mean, of course, they had a belief that they were following the correct person. So, yeah, that's not a good. Example to follow someone that has lots of followers. That just doesn't do you. That's not going to give you the right thing. Now, let me explain why you're not going to find anyone enlightened, generally speaking. When I say you, I'm not talking to you personally. I'm talking to in general. It's because a person that is on a true path to become spiritually enlightened, they're not going to be like anybody else around them. They might be in a group with 1,000 followers of a particular guru, and the longer they stay around that individual and those people, the person that's truly on the path to becoming spiritually enlightened is slowly but surely going to bifurcate from the rest of the group. And they're going to know they're different. They're different than everyone there. They're not on the same path as the guru. They're not on the same path as anyone in the group because there are no groups. There never, ever in the history of all mankind has there ever been a group of enlightened individuals. It's always one guru or one person and maybe another enlightened person that's following that individual. So you're never, ever going to find a group of enlightened people. That's just the way it is on this planet. It's just very unusual to, if not impossible, to ever find a group of enlightened individuals. It's because it's so rare. So, my point in saying the message here is your path to enlightenment and through enlightenment is going to be a rocky road because you're going to find that you're different than everyone around you. You're going to be eventually outcast. It is frowned upon in this modern day and age to kill you, generally speaking, if you're so much different than everyone else around you. May not be true in the Middle East and stuff, but generally speaking, in the free world, mostly, it's frowned upon to kill people that disagree with your religion or your faith. If you are enlightened, you're going to disagree with all of them. There are none on the planet Earth at this time that have a following that are following an enlightened spiritual teacher. There are none. And so you're going to be entirely on your own when you get closer and closer and closer. And another thing is, 100% of everyone that is spiritually seeking for one way or another a spiritual enlightened life, 100% of them don't know and have no clue of what enlightenment is. Now, you can read till the cows come home in books about what it is, but those authors don't know what it is because they're not enlightened. And they're just regurgitating things that they've learned from people that are unenlightened. And it just goes on and on and on. So you do not know what enlightenment is. I can assure you of that. And so you're following a path blindly. And you're following it, like it or not, while exercising faith. Because you think there's something, and that's what you're seeking after. But you don't know what it is. Nobody does. Nobody has ever known what it is before it takes place. Now, you can get to the point of spiritual enlightenment, and welcome to the crowd of a handful on the planet Earth out of 7 billion people, if you should ever do that. And if you do, you still have an entire life to live. And it's going to be initially quite difficult because, again, as I said, not only up to the point of enlightenment, not only are you transitioning away from all that is known to be true, but when you do become enlightened, now you are in possession of something that's never going to leave you until you die. And that thing that you are in possession of, spiritual enlightenment, you can't share with anyone else. And when I say you can't share it, it's like you can't. It's what you feel. It's what you are. It's what I've made mention of. If I had a lemon in my hand and I ate into it, I would express something that unless you have ever eaten a lemon, you wouldn't know what I was talking about. So enlightenment is the exact same thing. If and when you ever do become enlightened, you now are not only different in the path that you got to enlightenment, but now for the rest of your life, you experience a reality that you can express and talk to other people about it, but there's no way to give it to them. And although you can guide, teach, talk, you can tell them, people say euphoria, this, that, or whatever. Be that as it may, it doesn't matter. You can't share it with them. You can't use words or anything else. And of course, you're going to have many people that are going to call you a liar, or they're going to say you're faking it, or this or that. And if you're enlightened, you don't care. It just doesn't matter to you because you are beyond, you've transcended ignorance, if you will. Now, even more rare than that, which only a handful of living people have ever experienced from the beginning of mankind, is a next enlightenment, which is the enlightenment expressed by Jesus of Nazareth, the Christ, if you will. And that experience would, and maybe, but there's not very much known about Krishna, but maybe Krishna was in the same boat. Buddha was not in the same boat initially, but I believe after reading and taking in the Lotus Sutra that is written, that he hid the fact that he was enlightened to the level of Jesus. And when I say hid, there's a reason he hid it. Because if he were to expose that, he would have to denounce 40 years prior of teaching about enlightenment, because they really are somewhat different from each other. So for instance, the initial first enlightenment is an experiencing that 100% of reality is illusory. It's not just that you think it, it's that you know it and you feel it and you experience it. Okay, so that's beyond just reading it. The next one is the exact same type scenario, but in a sense, now you've experienced the creator God. In Hinduism, that would be Brahma, known as Brahma. It's the same God that in the New Testament, Jesus is supposedly in the Garden of Gethsemane and he's praying to a God. And that God that Jesus was praying to is Brahma, or known in Hinduism as Brahma. That particular God, when you experience that God, that is another level of enlightenment that is, I don't know if the right word is beyond, but it is certainly not like the enlightenment of what Buddha expressed for 35 years after he became enlightened after sitting under the tree. And it's an amazing thing. But if you should experience that, then you are even in a different club, so to say, another one that is even more difficult to express to people. Most, I would guess, that if people get to that type of enlightenment, most, I would guess, would keep their mouths shut and never express it to anyone. They just might appear to be normal to anyone around, but they just kind of are quiet and they never express what they've experienced. Now, I would say that's true with the first enlightenment, like Buddha, but not the other one. Because if you have the other one, it is the experience of pure love, because that's what God is, pure love. And if you have that, and when I say have that, the enlightenment of pure love, not the pure love that people express towards one another, and not the pure love of an apostle or this or that or whatever you can think. Not that. It's a pure love of God, and it's not a knowing of it, but an actual sharing or experience. And in that pure love of God experience, that's where Jesus said, "I and the Father are one." It's a connection. Oh, and actually, in Buddhism, the term Advaita is the exact same thing that I'm trying to express right now. Although no Buddhists understand the word Advaita, that is another expression of the immersion, if you will, in the enlightenment of God. And when your love and God connect, and you know it, it's not accidental. And when you know that takes place, then it's like I and the Father are one. Now, when that happens, then it's quite difficult to keep your mouth shut about what you know to be true, because now you're trying to share your love. It's not like it's not like the guru or the teacher is trying to help you learn. For instance, I'm not trying to help you transcend where you are spiritually. I'm not trying to help you do something that you're not going to do on your own anyways. Maybe if not in this life, in some other life. I'm not trying to help you do that because I can't. It's not possible for me. But what I can do is teach you the things that I know to be true through the process of, well, just what a normal guru does. And then what takes place is if or when a person finally gets to that type of enlightenment, and I'm talking beyond this life and beyond all lives, okay? Then when you look back and you see that a person like me was trying to help you understand, and then you understand that, then you become enlightened like that, then there's this, that's where that pure bond of love is, see? And so I'm not trying to help you do something you're not going to eventually do on your own. It seems like I am. It seems like I am, but I'm not, because when I'm teaching you, all that does is forms a bond of love that, if not in this life, some other life, and maybe 100 lives from now or 1,000,000 years from now. And you look back and you go, oh, wow, this guy was teaching a video and he did it for no money. He didn't care. He doesn't want anything from you. He just was trying to teach love of the creator of all realities. And when you do that, then you have a bond of friendship and pure love. And that's how all that are with God are one. Does that make sense? And so that's kind of what I was just saying. So when you're going through that process, I just want you to know, you're going to be by yourself. You always are by yourself in those situations. There may be situations where you feel this spiritual tug of some sort of spiritual God or whatever, but that's before you ever get to that point of spiritual enlightenment. And you realize that these tugs or these things are instigated by you, not by this unknown, unseen God. It's always instigated by you. So if you don't do something, if you don't exercise faith, or if you don't care, then nothing's going to take place because you are the creator of all of this. Now, that's not to give credit to the creator God or Jesus or Krishna or Buddha or anything like that, but you're not giving them credit. What you're doing is you're eventually realizing, if you knew them personally, then you would realize that, oh, they did that because they loved me, not because they were trying to control me or teach me or whatever. They just did it because they loved you. You see? You see how that works? So that's what I was going to say. So the path there is lonely. In some cases, at least it was for me, it is excruciatingly difficult. Excruciating. I am blessed to have married my sweetheart from high school when we were going together in high school. And so we were friends, and I will tell you that when this process took place some 35 years later, it damn near broke our marriage up, even though, but if it would have, I would have renounced the spiritual enlightenment. I would have renounced the path that I am on, because my commitment was to her. When I give my marriage vows, I cannot give that up and pursue spiritual enlightenment, even though it is the most powerful drive in my existence. Should I give up my marriage to my wife, I am now lost the integrity necessary to become spiritually enlightened, or shall I say spiritually to the tune of God. Now you can become spiritually enlightened like Buddha did, but you can't experience that other enlightenment that I'm trying to express because you don't have the integrity within you if you forsake your marriage vows to your wife. And I'm not saying you do that because out of a commitment. Me personally, I did it because I loved my wife. And when the difficulties started to arise after these episodes that you go through, you just, my love for my wife was more powerful than my love for God. Does that make sense? It's like I love God, but I got to the point where one time I go, I know I'm going to live more lives beyond this, and I love my wife too, and so I can't give this up and take this because I'll lose both. Does that make sense? So I got to the point where I go, oh well, I'm going to give up the pursuit of enlightenment, and instead I'm just going to, not just, but I'm going to hold on to my dear wife, and I can pursue that in another life. That's the way I looked at it. And of course, when that was all over and the process sort of ended, then of course I had both. But it was a rocky road, I will say that. So yeah, I'm just letting you know that path is extremely difficult, more so than anything you can possibly imagine, actually. So yeah, I just want you to know when you get into those situations, you're not alone. Now, why you feel alone, but you're not alone because you have that spirit, that your connection. You know, does that make sense? There's a connection, and you need to work on that years, if not decades, prior to spiritual enlightenment, prior to these things. You need to work on that because when you get on that rocky road, if that connection is not super, 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 the most important connection in love, shall I say, if that is not there, it will break and you will fall away, so to say, of that particular path, and you won't have either one. You won't have a wonderful life, and you won't have a wonderful spiritual experience. When you start on that path, you just keep going, and you don't do it out of a drive. I mean, you don't do it out of, shall I say, responsibility, or you think it's a commitment that you have to do. If you do that, you'll never find it. The only motivating thing that is never going to fail you is the pure love of God, the pure love of yourself. It's like a type of magnetism type thing that if you cut off the magnetism for one, then neither one connect to each other. So that's all I wanted to say. And I appreciate you watching, and I hope for all eternity in the lives in the future and forever and ever and ever that we do become one, because I love you and I love all those that are on this super, extremely difficult path. And lonely too, by the way. So you got to know that push through these times. For me, it was probably a decade where it was extremely difficult. But, maybe for you it would be a year, 6 months. It could be your entire life. I don't know. It's difficult to say. It's not a funny story, but I will say I remember at one time I thought, not thought, I wrote it in my journal. Halfway through this process at like 5-6 years or whatever, I says, when I meet you, God, if I ever do someday, maybe a million years from now, I'm going to tell you, assuming I am one with you, that I'm going to tell you face to face, it wasn't worth it. No matter what, I could be one with you like Jesus, like Buddha, Krishna, whatever. And I am going to tell you to your face, it was not worth it, regardless of what the benefits are. I actually wrote that in my journal. And I kind of laugh at it now because the feeling is now, honestly, I would go through it an infinite number of times. I would go through it a million, billion, trillion times because well, you just can't describe. You just can't describe it. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.